Most people are keenly aware of the risk that comes from retiring too soon. They understand the risk of running out of money and not being able to do what they want to do. However, there's also a risk from continuing to work too long, because when you do that, you end up missing out on many of the experiences that you could have when you have your health, your freedom, your independence, and if you work too long, you end up missing out on those things. In today's video, I'm going to help you understand how to avoid the risk of working too long. Hey everybody, I'm James Canole, founder of Root Financial Partners, and I'm here to teach you what you need to know to create a secure retirement. Today's video actually comes from a question that I received from the podcast that I have, and it came from a listener a few months ago. And when I released the podcast, I got a lot of interesting responses, so I wanted to be able to do a video that fully fleshed this concept out. So to start, I'm going to read through the question that I received, and then we're going to go through a series of considerations that anyone should consider as they're planning through these types of things that this listener asks. So to start, the listener says this. She says, "Hello, James. I'm lucky to have found your podcast, and I've been listening since July this year. I found your podcast to be the most informative and enjoyable. I'm 56 and a half, and I plan to retire from my current employer in 3 years at the age of 59 and a half. My current salary is $180,000 per year. I currently have a balance of $1.3 million in my 403b. I made the switch from defined contribution to defined benefit plan just last year, and will have about $450,000 lump sum plus a pension of about $900 per month. I also have a small pension of about $350 per month from a previous employer. I have no other retirement accounts like any IRAs. I do have $180,000 in cash, which will likely be about $250,000 in cash in 3 years. I will also be able to cash in my unused sick time, which will be around $36,000 after tax. My Social Security payment at full retirement age is $3,140 per month, and that's at age 67. I can live off of cash for about 2.5 years once I retire. After taking this much needed sabbatical from employment to do what I want to do while I'm still able to enjoy life in good health, I might end up taking a part-time job, although I'm not counting on it. Since the pandemic began in March of 2020, I've lost friends and colleagues who were in their 40s and 50s who suddenly got their lives cut too short. I could drag it out working at my current job until age 62, 65, or 67 to double my monthly pension amount, but if I felt more confident and secure about my finances, I would leave sooner, maybe in the next 6 months. What do you think, James? Is there anything I can tweak?" Now, I love this question because what this listener and what this individual is trying to balance is she wants to ensure she doesn't not have enough saved. She wants to make sure she's on track for retirement and doesn't ever run out of money. That's her first consideration. But what I love is she's also hitting on a secondary point, which is if she continues to work too long, she's recognizing the preciousness of life. She's lost some people that were close to her in the last couple of years, and she doesn't want to work so long that she misses out on some of the best opportunities, the best chances that she has to do what she actually wants to do. So in today's video, what we're going to do is flesh this out. How do you ensure you've not saved or that you're not undersaved and can fully fund everything you want to do? But also how to make sure you're not working longer than you need to so you're not missing out on any of the opportunities along the way and living with the regret of not having left work earlier. There's a quote that says, "We have 2 lives. And the second begins the moment we realize we have just one." And to me, this is the crux of the issue here. This individual is realizing we only have one life and is recognizing the goal of financial planning, the goal of investing isn't to grow and grow and grow and grow our money. The goal of financial planning and investing is to get to that point where we have enough to fully support the things that we want to do. So we want to look at how can we ensure we don't outlive our money, and we also want to look at how do we ensure we can fully live and do the things that we want to do. So to summarize, I know that was a long question. Here's the facts that we have today. This individual has a total balance of about $1.75 million in retirement accounts. Part of this is her 403b, part of this is a lump sum rollover that she will receive when she's no longer working. She also has a pension amount of $1,250, which is really the combination of 2 smaller pensions, one for $900, one for $350. We know that she has Social Security at age 67 of $3,140, and we know that she'll have cash at retirement of around $250,000 plus $36,000 of payout. The goal is to be okay long term, but also not to work longer than she needs to because she's recognizing that these are the years that she wants to be able to do the things she wants to do. Now, what we don't have is we don't have her expenses. We know that her salary today is $180,000, but we don't actually know how much she wants to live on in retirement. But the biggest factor, the biggest goal here is to say, how can I focus on not running out of money while still balancing not working any longer than I have to. Here's an important distinction I want to make is you can still be okay, or you can be okay with your financial planning, but completely miss the point of all of it. What's the best way to ensure you never run out of money? Well, it's to work as long as you possibly can. Keep working, keep saving, keep investing, keep deferring the things you want to do. You will probably be just fine over time. But it misses the point. The point is, how do we get to that point where we can do everything we want to do today, now, plus do everything we want to do in the future? So here's how I would look at this. I would look at this individual, and I don't know her expenses, but I do know that she has $180,000 is her salary today. The first thing we want to understand is you don't need to fully replace that full $180,000 in her salary. Of that $180,000, we know that she's putting some in her 403b. We know that she's saving a couple $1,000s per month or so, it seems, to cash, and we know that taxes are going to be taking a chunk of that out as well. So really, it's not $180,000 that she needs to be able to replace to be able to give herself permission to retire. It's a much smaller amount. Because if income starts here, after taxes, after savings, after investments, it's going to be a much lower amount that she actually needs to maintain to be able to support her lifestyle. The first thing we want to do now is understand how much income can she create from a portfolio value of about $2 million per year. So again, we're going to be conservative with this. We don't know exactly how much her portfolio is going to grow to in the next 3 years. Could be much higher, could be much lower, but I don't believe it's unreasonable to expect that that portfolio could grow from $1.75 million today to $2 million with the contributions she's making along the way, along with some little rate of return in the market. So if we assume a $2 million portfolio value, the first thing we want to understand is how much income can that create for her. There's a couple approaches we can take to this. The first is, let's just use the simple rule of 4%. If you have a $2 million portfolio and you take out 4% per year, that's going to give you $80,000 per year of income that you can live on. Of course, that's before taxes. You have to factor taxes in. That's also assuming you're invested the right way that allows that portfolio to last for 30 plus years, not just give you a couple years of that income. But if you use the 4% rule, right at the bat, we can say there's at least $80,000 of pre-tax income that she could generate. If you've watched in my other videos, you've seen me talk about other approaches. Where the 4% rule is a good starting point, but are there other more dynamic approaches that you can take? There's something called Guyton's guardrails. And Guyton's guardrails helps you understand how much more could you take from your portfolio if you diversify your portfolio a little bit differently, and if you follow some dynamic guardrails along the way. Now, in that example, she might be able to take about 5.5% from her portfolio each year. So if we go back to her having $2 million in her portfolio, 5.5% per year taken out of that each year, that comes out to about $110,000. Meaning right off the bat, before factoring in pension, before factoring in Social Security, she could generate $80,000 to $110,000 per year pre-tax from her portfolio. Let's just use a round number of $100,000 in this case. Let's say that $100,000 of income could come from her portfolio. Now, that's before pension and that's before Social Security. So let's now add those in. We know that she's going to have a pension, and the combined annual amount between the two pensions is $15,000 per year. So now what we know is it's not just the $100,000 that she could live on for income in retirement. It's $100,000 plus $15,000 from her pension. So now we're at $115,000 per year before taxes that she could live on. That's also before Social Security. So a few years down the road, Social Security kicks in, and that benefit is going to be about $37,000 per year pre-tax. So when we look at that, you'll have the pension of $15,000, Social Security of $37,000, investment income of $100,000. That gives her about $152,000 of income before taxes that she could generate throughout retirement. The reality is this. She's not going to start with just $100,000 from her income for the first few years of retirement before pension and Social Security kicks in. If that were to be the case, she would live on $100,000 just from her portfolio, then pensions kick in and that $100,000 goes to $115,000. She lives on that for a little bit, then Social Security kicks in and that $115,000 goes up to the full $152,000. It's not how most people do it. In reality, she'd probably take more from her portfolio up front, less from her portfolio on the back end to normalize the income amount. To say, how can I have a consistent amount of income, understanding that more will need to come from my portfolio up front, less on the back end as Social Security and pension kick in, but that's a basic way of understanding the different components of where income will come from. investments, pension, Social Security. Now there's certainly some considerations to make with this. One is, do those pensions have a cost of living adjustment? So when we're looking at the 4% rule or guidance guardrails, it's designed to show you how much income you create, but that's going to be adjusted for inflation over time. Social Security will be adjusted for inflation over time. These pensions may or may not be. So that's something to keep in mind is, will these pensions help you to preserve your purchasing power, or are they going to be fixed, which means the dollar amount remains the same, but the purchasing power is diminished a little bit each year with inflation. Tax brackets. So all these numbers are pre-tax. I'm not sure exactly what state this individual is in, but what you can do is, depending on whether these investment withdrawals are coming from IRAs or brokerage accounts or Roth IRAs, you can start to understand how will they be taxed. Social Security, part of that is going to be taxed. Pensions, those will likely be taxed. So understanding, okay, if you're generating 100,000 or 115,000 or 150,000, that's pre-tax. Really what you want to know to see, can I retire, is what's the after-tax amount of each of those. Then also the investment strategy. We can't just assume some income amount that those portfolios create and be guaranteed that that's going to happen. Those income amounts are based upon research and based upon years and years and years of data of, based upon how you're invested, what's the most amount of income that a portfolio like that has been able to generate historically. So that's just a very simple way of starting. Just understand there are some considerations to look at to ensure this is actually being dealt with more appropriately. So here are the key points from some of this. How can you ensure you don't outlive your money? Well, you take a basic starting approach like this and then ideally make it more detailed. You start by understanding, what are your expenses going to be? What do you want that retirement to look like? So as this listener, as she's asking this question, she probably has some idea of what she wants to be able to do. She talked about a sabbatical. She talked about being able to do the things that she wants to do today. The real question is, what's it going to cost to do what you want to do today? If that cost is 60, 70 grand per year, you're probably in a wonderful place to make this happen. If that cost is 150 grand per year after taxes, not so much. Obviously, those might be two of the extremes. It's maybe somewhere in the middle, but understanding what that amount is going to be is crucial here, because what we're looking at is how much income can be generated. What you now need to do is line that up with how much expenses do you need to cover, and is that fully met? Is that expense liability met? Just to take a basic crack at it, going back to my point earlier of her salary is $180,000 today. That does not mean that she needs $180,000 today. And I ran just quick basic numbers. I said, let's assume, well, let's not assume, her income is $180,000 today. Let's assume that when she's retired, she's no longer saving 25 grand per year to savings, which is about how much she's put into her savings account today. What that does is it takes that $180,000 and drops it down to $155,000 that now needs to be replaced. Well, let's also assume that she's paying $30,000 per year more in taxes today than she will be in retirement. Maybe that number is close, maybe it's off, but just for assumption, what that does is we start at 180, we remove 25,000 that she's no longer saving, now we're down to 155. If you remove 30,000 of taxes, now we're down to 125,000. Now, we also know that she's maxing out her 403b at 26,000 per year. So what that means is now that 125 comes down to about 99,000 per year. So as we're looking at this, I'm just making some very back of the napkin calculations here, but if she needs about $99,000 per year of income, and she can generate about $152,000 per year of pre-tax income, that's what we're looking at here. Is there enough pre-tax income so that after you pay taxes, there's enough to be able to do what you want to do? If the answer is yes, then you're in a good position. And if the answer is yes, that's where the second part of her question comes in, of am I at the risk of working too long? Well, once you have enough, once you're in a position where you could fully support your retirement lifestyle, every additional year, every additional month, every additional week you continue to work is one fewer week, one fewer month, one fewer year that you have to do the things you want to do with. Now, if you love work, great. That's not a huge risk, but it sounds like that's not the position she's in. She's in the position where she wants to be able to do other things, and by understanding how much she needs to retire, once she is there, what that's telling me is that every day, week, month, year she continues to work past that point, there's really a risk to that as well. There's the lost opportunity. There's the opportunity cost of not being able to do those things she wants to do when she has her health, when she has her energy, when she has the freedom and the ability to fully pursue some of that. So I really like this question because I want to go back to the quote that I started with of we have two lives and the second begins the moment we realize we have just one. And for this particular individual, she realized she has just one. Unfortunately, it took passing of friends or colleagues or people close to her. And for some of us, that's what's needed to realize that we don't exist just to work, and we don't exist just to save to our 401ks and IRAs and all that. So how can we look at all this as a tool to help us pursue what we want to do? And how do we balance the risk of retiring too early and not having enough money to last for the rest of our lives, but also contrast that against the risk of working too long and having more than enough money to last us the rest of our lives, but missing out on what matters along the way? Thanks again for watching. This is James Canal with the Root Financial Partners. If you enjoyed this video, please be sure to share it with someone else who you think could find value from it. And also be sure to like this video and subscribe for more content like this. And if you want more resources about how you can create a secure retirement, be sure to check out our podcast called Ready for Retirement. And finally, if you're interested in seeing how our services can help you create a secure retirement, check us out at rootfinancialpartners.com.